and we are the co-founders of Dipper.
Dipper is a technology platform that guides professionals of color to a better workplace, one review at a time.
Dipper is your safe space. It is the time for you to share your voice with a community that you are a part of. Visit us and join today at ourdipper.com.
Oh, we're all here.
Yay!
We are live. Oh my goodness. I am live with my sisters and this is feeling good. Everyone looks amazing.
I know.
How is everyone feeling today?
We're speechless.
It's almost Friday, right?
Well, welcome to the virtual launch of ourdipper.com. We are hosting virtual events throughout April, so please join us every Tuesday and Thursday this month to participate in our Shut Up and Listen themed events. Now, each event will feature top DEI thought leaders to discuss engaging topics impacting workplace culture. And so this is a perfect opportunity to share more about Dipper, a tech platform for all people of color, Black, Brown, Asian, and Indigenous professionals of all levels, including C-suite, to rate and review their workplaces. So members have profiles and can access the inside scoop on which companies to join and stay away from. Members can also engage with other members on Dipper's newsfeed. And today we will be discussing the topic of, you ready? Erasing Black emotion in the workplace. But first, let me introduce our influential guests, Madison Butler, and my partner Jacinta will introduce Elizabeth. So Maddie Butler is the self-proclaimed blue-haired unicorn and is founder and CEO of Blue Haired Unicorn LLC. She's an HR and culture advisor who creates scalable strategies that maintain equitable spaces by promoting psychological safety and authenticity. Madison has the gift of facilitating hard conversations through storytelling, data, and empathy. And she is the co-host of, which I love, and I'm always watching, the Bye Bye Binary podcast. So please check it out. Jacinta, on to you.
Thanks, Netta. And I am honored to introduce everyone to Liz. Liz is an instructional designer and college professor. She is the founder of Black History and Culture Academy, which has over 20 courses focused on African American history and culture, and so much more. She is also the co-host of a podcast called The Ed Up Experience. She was recently named LinkedIn's top voice. Congratulations, Liz. And we're so happy to have you on today. And we're so excited to have both of these people here with us today. So let's just jump in. Erasing Black emotion and learn more about the burden this places on our community. Yeah. So should I dive into a question, Netta, or you like what?
Yeah, go for it.
What emotions do you see erased or minimized in regards to the Black experience? Either of you can go first.
I defer to Madison. I want her to, because I always fangirl over her, and I don't want to make her feel weird or uncomfortable because I have a tendency of doing that. But when I first got on LinkedIn, Madison was probably the first person I saw that I was like, you know what? I aspire to be this way, to not hide my emotion, my frustration, my anger, because it's valid. So I want to hear her address it first, because she's the trailblazer that I think a lot of us, when we first got on LinkedIn last year, especially right after George Floyd was killed, were like, you know what, she's serving that tea, she's serving it hot. She didn't even blow on it and give it to the people. She gave it to them steaming hot, burning they tug. No, 0 F's to give. So I want her to piping hot, swinging on them. They got hot tea on their face.
They're ready. Yeah.
So let's just let her address that, so that she can pave the way and give us her hot takes on that.
Absolutely.
I'm here for it.
So I actually, I was gonna say, so I think It's all emotion. There's no emotion that feels appropriate as a Black woman in corporate America, because you can't feel sad and you can't feel angry because now you're the angry Black woman, or now you're over dramatic and reading into situations. And then there's the guilt of feeling happy when you achieve something because you know other people aren't. And so I know I've had moments where I've gotten promoted or I've landed a new job. And especially during the pandemic, I've felt immense guilt around it. And so I think right now in 2021, there's no emotion that feels good to have. And so you end up being like this robotic, like, yes, no, make sure you don't smile too hard, but make sure you smile enough, kind of shell of yourself. And so I think, Netta, it was one of the things that we talked about on our last talk was having emotion as a Black woman specifically is an act of resistance. Showing up for yourself and your own emotions is an act of resistance because it's what they've tried to shut us off from for so long.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that, Liz?
I agree. I always think of it as a college professor. I teach creative writing. I also teach American literature. So I look at things a lot of the times through a historical lens and through a lens of American history and American literature. And the narrative of the Black woman, just like Madison said, is the angry Black woman, the mule, the Jezebel. There's a lot of archetypes that tend to take our emotions, whether it's our sexuality, whether it's our love, whether it's our sadness, whatever emotion that is typically valid. I mean, any emotion is valid depending on what the circumstances are, right? So as people, we should be able to express a range of emotions. And even the idea of not being able to be happy, because if you're happy, are you being frivolous? If you're dancing, what are you dancing for? You know, there's nothing to dance about. So you end up somewhat mimicking what you think a person, a woman should be. And a lot of times you're mimicking the majority culture because that's the lens of that's what's acceptable. That's what is professional. That is what you should aspire to. And you created this caricature of yourself that is totally false. It's not real, and it does not resonate with who you are as a person. But someone from day one has told you in order for you to be successful, this is what you have to be. And I agree with Madison in that the resistance is taking all of that and being like, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not doing any of that because none of that is me. So I have to live in my truth. I have to be authentic. And I think a lot of us last year did start to get to that point where we're like, you know, this is really ridiculous what we've been doing here. We've been told that in order for us to be successful, these are the things, these are the pieces of the puzzle. Put all these together, stir this up, do this, and you'll be fine. And like, but that's not happening. So what are we doing here? So yeah, I totally agree with that. The emotions are something that we've been taught are not valid, and we're totally now saying, you know what, no more.
Yeah. Well, it's tiring, right? And it's these experiences are so traumatic. They hurt. It's painful. And I think for any human being, you get to the point where you're just like, you know what? I'm about to bring the brand new me. And it's going to be a total different movement, you know, for me and path that I take. So how can we better address race-based traumatic stress?
So I think the first step is like being able to talk about it. We've lived in a world for so long where it has been so much scarier to say that you had a traumatic experience at work than it is to be the person committing the abuse or the trauma. And the responsibility does not fall on Black folks to fix these systems. Employers have to create organizations and cultures that foster the ability to be open about your trauma. As someone who is a domestic violence survivor, trauma impacts your body the same way, whether it's familial or interpersonal or at work. And the thing is, if you never talk about it, you will get to a day where you are just a shell of yourself and you've lost confidence in your voice and your ability to speak up. And that will just follow you from company to company. Even if you get to a point where you leave, you will take those experiences to the next company and you will be less likely to raise your hand or speak up when something happens. And so organizations have to be willing to not only write policies that protect people, but they have to actually use them. So often we see these policies written and we have no tolerance. And then you're like, but so-and-so is a racist, and they're like, shh, he's a top performer. Shh, leave him alone. Let him be.
You don't want to talk about it.
Exactly. And that's what.
And what you do is you further protect the person who's committing the harm, because now they can turn around and say, well, I'm obviously not doing that. We have a policy and no one said anything to me. And so you further traumatize that person. And so it is absolutely organizations' responsibility to make their spaces safe enough where people can actually think about their trauma, because no one realizes it's trauma until you're saying it out loud.
Come on, Maddie. Yes, and yes, absolutely.
Liz, is there anything you want to add, Liz?
I think I've worked in the addiction treatment field. I've myself also been a survivor. I am a survivor of domestic violence. And I think that there has been a lot of stigma attached to the idea of struggling. There's a lot of stigma attached to the idea of being a victim, because it's like you're complaining or you're trying to play the victim card, or, just stop, just don't, it's like you don't want to stigmatize a person that is committing these offenses. So instead you do turn around and create a narrative where the person that's saying, hey, this has happened to me, that person's a troublemaker, because that person is calling attention to these microaggressions that are happening, or blatant racism that's happening, or inequity that's happening in the workplace, or things that are happening on social media. Oh, that's just sticks and stones, just let that, just wash off your back. You shouldn't be so concerned with what other people are saying. Focus on yourself. But Madison hit the nail on the head. You can't focus on yourself, or you can't be productive if you're constantly traumatized every time you turn around. And I think for a lot of us, when we saw George Floyd killed last year, and now a lot of us are still going through the trauma of the trial now, as that all of that's being drummed up again, it was like finally processing a lot of the trauma that we have been dealing with probably for decades. I found myself getting up and I was shaking. Something very small would happen. Like my son might drop something on the ground and I would start crying, because I was like, okay, there's a lot of trauma and everything is triggering me now, because I've never processed the trauma that I've dealt with since childhood, because I've always been taught, stop, be quiet. Don't. And I had to really train myself not to do that with my children. My son would fall and I'd say, don't cry. And I'm like, well, why am I telling him not to cry? Because he just hurt. So of course he should cry. But we were taught from a very young age, if you cry, if you're in the store, you're running around, if you're yelling, all those things, normal things, emotion is bringing attention to yourself. And we got to remember 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, bringing attention to yourself might mean death. You might be lynched. You might be killed. You might be raped. Those things can still happen. But as time goes on, at least we have some kind of recourse. You're thinking about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you could be raped and it's like, you raped, so well, go back to your house, and that's nothing's going to happen to those people. Right. So we think about generationally that trauma that's passed down from generation to generation, when you were taught just to accept being mistreated. And that's something I think a lot of us are breaking out of now, where it's like, if we're having microaggressions happening to us, or we're seeing things that are happening, bullying. I'm so glad that Madison is talking about social media bullying, because there's been a lot of times where people just said, well, so what? People are saying stuff on social media, big deal.
Even on LinkedIn, right?
Even on LinkedIn.
How traumatizing that is, how painful it is.
Trauma. And then you have people that are killing themselves. You have young folk, teenagers that are killing themselves and are internalizing a message of, so what? Like they're just a bully, like just ignore them. That's not what we want to teach people, to internalize trauma and to ignore bullies and to just say, well, you're the trouble because you're the one that's pointing out someone that is hurting you. So
Liz,
lots of that.
Maddie, y'all are giving me chills right now. Seriously. Every single thing that you're saying. And I see the comment section here. People are typing, right? Because they understand, right? And they are hearing every single thing that y'all are saying. So thank you for pointing these things out.
And one thing we have grown to appreciate, especially in following both of you and your journeys, is activism, right? So have you found the activism to be healing, or has that actually been like brought back the trauma, just re-trauma, whether it's trauma from the workplace or in domestic situations. It sounds like you both have been very outspoken about trauma in both of those areas. So has that been healing for you?
So I think for me, it's like a yes and a no. And so I am very vocal about the fact that my ability to be as loud as I am about being queer, about being Black, is privilege. Like, it is a privilege to not have to put my life on the line and to have my job on the line. And so I feel like it is my responsibility to consistently leverage that privilege to not only educate people, but to be able to be a voice for people who don't have this privilege. And so, of course, it makes me feel good to know that I am educating people and I'm moving the needle forward. However, yes, it's traumatizing because I had someone show up at my house last year and I get an array of death threats, and I don't know if there's anything healing about that. And for me, it's a huge trigger as a DV survivor to just go through those mental motions again. But there is something really empowering about claiming my voice and not stuttering and being able to say, I didn't stutter. I don't feel bad about this. And I'm going to continue to say these things until the world changes. And until then, you're stuck with me.
Yes, yes, and yes. Yes, 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 yes.
So many. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
How about you, Liz?
I have to agree. There is a great amount of empowerment. And I have to, again, I'm going to make Madison super uncomfortable that she was.
Do it.
I was crushing on her so hard because I was like, oh my gosh, she is giving it to him. She don't care. Mm-hmm. There is a certain amount of empowerment in, I can say whatever I want, and I'm not going to I was in the same situation. I didn't go on LinkedIn. I wasn't job hunting. I was just what's out here? What's popping on LinkedIn? So I think there is that idea of, I wasn't in a situation where it was if people don't like me, then maybe I won't get hired. But why should it be that way? Why should you have to do that? And I think that's a part of why we do it. Because it's so what? So what if you are job hunting? I'm not job hunting. But because I'm not, I think that makes me extra boisterous because I'm you know what? For those people that are and have told me I can't say that because my job is watching me, or I'm looking for a job and I don't want to put a target on my back. There definitely is that sense of reclaiming your voice and reimagining what professionalism looks like. You can have lashes, you can have piercings, you can have blue hair, you could speak however you want to speak, you could do whatever you want to speak, you could be queer, you could be straight, you could be ghetto, dare I say, when people are oh, you ain't gonna code switch. No, I'm a college professor and I'm not gonna code switch. I do this is what I do in the classroom. So why should I do this I go in a college classroom and speak like this. So why am I on LinkedIn affecting something that's not real, not being authentic? So I think there is a certain amount of power in being able to do that, to be able to say, we're going to reimagine what professionalism looks like. Just because it's been shown through this particular lens, and that lens is of the majority culture, that doesn't mean that that's what professionalism is. Because obviously we're both professional, we're both intelligent, we're both well-spoken. And it doesn't mean it has to fit inside this box. Is it traumatic? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Because when you have fought to be respected, when you have fought to make sure that people do understand that you have talent and you have experience and you have education, and you've overcome, for myself, domestic violence, sexual assault, anything that I've been arrested. Actually been arrested more than one time. I talked about my false arrest on LinkedIn, and that was traumatic, revealing a lot of those things. But I said, you know what? If we have Kyle Rittenhouse then raised $2 million in bond and everyone feels sorry for him, I'm going to talk about how I was racially profiled and I went to jail for a $2 pack of batteries and nobody felt sorry for me. And I sat in jail until my mom drove 5 hours to bail me out. And if I wouldn't have had that, what would have happened? Because I would have had to sit in jail, because that was a privilege that I had a mom that was willing to post my bond and drive across the state to come pick me up. But if I would, and then had the receipt right in my book bag the whole time, and still had to sue the company because they refused to admit that what they did was wrong, and had a civil lawsuit where I was awarded money. And when that story came out, I posted on LinkedIn, and CNN asked me to do an op-ed piece about that at the end of last year. Something similar to what Madison talked about. People almost threatening me to kill me because they you picking on a little 17-year-old child. How dare, you're a grown woman. How are you talking about Kyle Rittenhouse? I had 100 emails on my job
Oh.
And I thought about Madison's situation that happened to her as I stepped outside my door with my son. And I said, if somebody had enough time on their hands to write me an email on my job,
Yep.
a long diatribe,
Oh,
that
yes.
person might have enough time on their hands to come to my house. I was literally afraid to step outside. So those are some of the things, the trauma that we have to deal with. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, but it's not going to get me to stop what I'm doing. I'm still going to do what I'm doing, because at the end of the day, that is a privilege for me to be able to speak up and say my piece. And I'm not going to let someone soften my voice because they feel that they're a white 50-year-old male in rural America and it's their responsibility to get me to be quiet. I'm not going to be quiet. I'm going to keep speaking loud. And I think sometimes people tend to think, I know from Madison having multicultural background, my husband's white, my kids are biracial. I think sometimes people think, oh, you're on some Black power thing, or you hate white people. My husband's white. No, I don't hate white people. What I hate is injustice. So a threat to justice, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice anywhere. Martin Luther King said that, who they love to take and weaponize against us. So let me quote the man that, died with was killed with a 75% disapproval rating. But my thought process is always like, I want my children who are biracial to grow up in a society where they're not going to be, it's not going to be unfair for them. Yeah. They're not going to be attacked because of that. So I think that is our responsibility. And I think we take it seriously because it's something that we're passionate about.
You know what I think is so helpful to see other professionals like yourselves doing this work and speaking the truth, right? And so to know, okay, well, there's a community out here, I'm going to continue to do that too. And so that's always helped me to know that I have like that safe haven, that safe space. And in fact, to your point, people are evil out there. Like, people don't understand how deep racism and racist people run. It is very, very deep. And in fact, I wrote a very small post earlier this year, and I put white supremacy. That received 25 million.
They get very triggered by that terminology.
Very, very angry.
The emails that I got, I mean, Jacinta saw a couple, and that's how come it's so empowering again to have your community and your team, because she responded to one of them. She's like the caucasity. Right?
Yep.
Jacinta was like, oh no, don't.
You will not come for my best friend on the email. Like, you won't. But it's sad because even my of course, I have a 7-year-old and she's playing my Minecraft and Roblox, and I heard her say to her friend, some people are still doing racism. Like, and that is true. And like, we're seeing it in the workplace. They're seeing it in the virtual world that they're playing in. It's, we have to figure out, like, how do we thrive and still be ourselves? And I think what's beautiful is we're supporting each other.
Yes.
Right? So there's this weird dialogue that we don't get along. Like, more than 3 of us, we can't be seen together. Like, it's not the reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And that leads in so well to my next question. How do you respond when someone in the workplace says that marginalized communities are being too sensitive? Being too sensitive. So many people have heard that line, and it's traumatizing, it's hurtful. But how do you respond to that? How does one respond to it?
So I've set some like pretty strong boundaries with myself these days. I'm like, I don't play with that conversation. I'm not going to have it. I'm not going to validate my identity. And I'm certainly not going to validate my lived experience to someone who wants to argue it. But if we want to talk about sensitivity, anytime you say the word white supremacy or Black girl magic, you think the world is blowing up. I posted a post about like Black girl magic the other day, which, like, not offensive. I am Black, I am magic, I am lovely. And a white woman posted that I have really low self-esteem because I'm relying on my race to be beautiful. And would I support her if she made a post about white girl magic? And I was like, ma'am, like, please point out where this post hurt you. Like, what are you upset about? Oh my God. And so it's like, I don't have these conversations because on the other side of the table, the reason you're even asking me is because you would rather deny the existence of oppression and racism than acknowledge where you uphold it. And to me, that's the actual sensitivity. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that like my lived experience didn't happen to like coddle you and make you feel good.
Right.
But to protect my own peace, I only engage with people who actually want to do better and who want to learn. And I can already tell you, if we're having that conversation, we're probably too far gone, and like Google is free. I will happily point you there.
Well, let me just say that again for you too and amplify that. Did y'all hear? Google is free. Research, right?
Free 99.
Free 99. It doesn't get any free than that.
And to be clear, I am not free. I have invoices. So like the next time you ask me to pick my brain, I'm going to need you to pick an email for me to send that invoice.
It's okay to be expensive.
Oh my gosh. We need some more time because that's a whole nother conversation there. Oh my gosh. Pay Black women. And Google is free. Someone said blocked. Block them, right? Jacinta, did you have a question?
I did not. I mean, this has been so, I'm full. Like, this has been so good. And, you know, Netta, if you have anything else you want to ask, I am just so grateful. I feel like this is just re-energizes everything that we're doing and building for all of us in the workplace, in our communities, in our own homes. So
absolutely. Ladies, is there anything else that you wanted to say or that you didn't get a chance to say?
I'm just so in awe of all of you ladies. I support everyone here. I followed everyone here, everything that you're doing for us as a community, as people, as Black women. I think that there is a special place in my heart for us as a community because I feel as though it's so much more difficult. And I think when sometimes we talk about the challenges and we're talking about Black girl magic, there's no reason to say white girl magic because all of us grew up with whiteness all around us. That's been the standard for everything. Excellence, beauty. I mean, my son is biracial, and I've shared this, that he, the other day, said, me and daddy are white and you're brown and I'm white like daddy. And I asked my husband, where is he getting that idea from? But it's because he's exposed to YouTube and Roblox, and everything is the dominant and the majority culture. And that is why these spaces are so important for us, because it's so important to show all the different diversity of Black women, our womanhood, our experience, what we're going through. Being able to show that and share that just helps us to support each other. And we do support each other. We do watch what each other's doing. Even if I don't say it, I feel it, because when I see Madison posting, or I see Netta doing something, just all of you guys, I'm just like, okay, I got it in me for today. I can do it.
I can do this. Yes.
It's something that it gives us that motivation. It gives us that empowerment. It gives us just extra oomph that we need to keep doing what we're doing. Because like Madison said, this is not for free. Google is free. And if you want to go ahead and feel free to look up white supremacy and why there's nothing offensive about it, go ahead and Google. You do not have to ask me. And I think that all of us are on the same page with that. Pay Black women, understand Black women. We are not here to have our brains picked. We are here to amplify our own messages if we so choose, and to pursue what we're doing to amplify all of our ideas in the community and uplift and provide that. So I just appreciate you guys. This has been very uplifting and fulfilling for me as well.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for all of the incredible work that both of you are doing. Thank you to the guests that tuned in today. Yes. All professionals of color, connect with us on ourdipper.com right now by signing up and completing your profile on ourdipper.com so that we can unpack all of the amazing gems our incredible guest dropped today. Also, be sure to rate and review all companies that you have worked for on ourdipper.com. And sign up. Be the guide to a better workplace. Log in, share your voice, and find your space. Thank you for joining, and we hope to hear from you soon.